All right, it's week 17 of the fantasy football season, championship week for almost everybody out there. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. But once again, it's your weekly reminder that kickers are people too. I'm going to be going through ranking every single kicker in week 17 for fantasy football. Hopefully, it will give you the edge, making the difference between all-time glory as a fantasy football champion and just another wasted season. Let's hop on into it. Your kickers, tiers, and rankings for week 17. Okay, first and foremost, your must stardom guys and your must bench guys. No flirting around with this one. If you got these guys here, just go ahead, plug them into your lineup. It doesn't matter what the matchup is. Chris Boswell of the Pittsburgh Steelers, your kicker number one on the season. Ka'im Fairbairn of the Houston Texans, Brandon Aubrey of the Dallas Cowboys, and back on the list, Harrison Butker of the Kansas City Chiefs. I just am going to trust Butker now. He's got a couple of games under his belt, and the Chiefs love to kick field goals in the red zone. And now our must bench him guys. Guys, do not consider playing these guys in your fantasy championship matchup, your playoff, your toilet bowl, whatever it is. Don't play these guys unless you're intentionally trying to pick up a loss this weekend. Dustin Hopkins of the Cleveland Browns, Graham Gano of the New York Giants, Anders Carlson of the New York Jets. Maybe it's Greg Joseph. Who the hell knows who the Jets kicker is going to be? Joey Sly of the New England Patriots, Blake Grupe of the New Orleans Saints, Cam Little of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and if he plays, Nick Folk of the Tennessee Titans. Just go ahead and bench these guys. There are going to be better options for you. Okay, I'm gonna do it here. First off, my man Will Reichard of the Minnesota Vikings, the best rookie kicker we've seen since Brandon Aubrey last year. He's been near automatic this season. Did miss a couple of games with a quad injury. Has looked good since coming back. Only missed one field goal. Hasn't missed an extra point yet. I actually love this matchup. They're playing Green Bay at home. Green Bay's defense forces a lot of turnovers, but they still give up some points. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. Defenses are going to go out the window. I think it's going to be all offense all day in Minnesota on Sunday. I do have a rule here. It's really hard to trust Vikings kickers. I can never fully grasp it because it is my Minnesota Vikings, but for the final week, I think if you got Will Reichard, go ahead, roll him out there. It's a great matchup. Now, I probably just gave him the kiss of death and the ultimate jinx. So do not blame me when you play Will Reichard and he misses 2 field goals and my Vikings lose because of it. But Will Reichard, I love this matchup. Great matchup against Green Bay at home in week 17. Okay, Justin Tucker, how the mighty have fallen. This was Mr. Automatic, maybe the greatest kicker we've ever seen. He's had a disastrous season, but he's been pretty reliable the last week or so. Pretty consistent, and the Ravens are scoring a lot of points. They're going to Houston, playing indoors in controlled environment on Christmas Day. If you got Justin Tucker, I think it's okay. If you've rode it out with him this long, you might as well finish the season with him. I think you should have a good day. Baltimore's got to win this game to keep pace in the AFC North, try and take home that division title. Houston's defense is not very good. They can rush the passer, but they're really not good on the back end. I think the Ravens are going to be able to score a lot of points, and Justin Tucker has at least been making his extra points at a field goal or two, and he could have a very good weekend for you guys. But Justin Tucker on Christmas Day, go ahead. If you got him, you've stuck with him, why not finish it out? He's a fine start this week. Okay, Jake Bates, he's impossible to completely love. He's been excellent this season, only missed 1 kick over 50 plus yards. But the problem is he plays for the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions score a ton of touchdowns, don't necessarily kick the field goals. They're taking on a bad San Francisco team Monday night in a game that may not mean anything. Minnesota wins. The game means nothing to Detroit. It all goes down to week 18. So who knows what the extra motivation is going to be for them. They could be resting guys, all about getting that number 1 seed in the NFC. So Jake Bates, as good of a kicker as he's reliable as he is, I just think Dan Campbell and the Lions, they pass up field goals. They go for 4th downs. They're a hyper-aggressive team, and they score a ton of touchdowns. They are not getting stopped inside the 20-yard line very often. So Jake Bates, a very, very high safe floor, but I think he's ultimately limited in his ceiling just because of how good the Lions offense is and how many touchdowns they score. So give me Jake Bates as a fine start, but maybe not in for a monster week if you need it. Okay, Josh Karty of the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Arizona Cardinals at home in LA. I'm going to put Karty in the if you have to category. Now, he's been pretty good at home this season, but He was bad last week against the Jets. He missed a couple of kicks. But I talked about it last week. MetLife is a very terrible place to kick a football. Karty's just a little unreliable, and the Rams have been scoring a lot of touchdowns this year. They're very good in the red zone after getting Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back. Plus, you add in Kyron Williams. He loves to run the ball into the end zone. He's pretty much Mr. Automatic. So I think at home, the offense is going to thrive against a team that's season's over. Season's over for the Cardinals. So give me Karty as a if you have to, because I just think not a very high floor or a very high ceiling for Karty this week. I expect a lot of touchdowns for the Rams. So maybe 4 points for him could be something you're in for. So if you have to start him, I guess you can. Not necessarily a bench, but still not super optimistic about him. Okay, Jason Sanders of the Miami Dolphins. Now, here's the biggest problem. The Miami Dolphins are heading to Cleveland. The Cleveland Browns are terrible, but it's going to be cold and it's going to be awful. I'm going to put Sanders in the if you have to category. He's been great this season. I've loved Sanders a lot of weeks. He's really been slept on how good of a fantasy kicker he has been, but I think this is just a terrible spot for him. We know the Dolphins struggle in cold weather on offense. I just don't think he's going to have the opportunities, man. They're not going to score touchdowns. They're going to struggle to move the football. Even as bad as Cleveland is, I don't think the kicking situation is great either. Bad weather, wind, cold, could end up missing a kick or two. I really like Sanders overall this season. He's been great for you, but I think this week is just a terrible spot if you've been rolling with Sanders all year. If you have to, if you're willing to take the risk, it is a risk. You can play him. Don't think you have to bench him, but just be prepared to be ultimately let down this week. Okay, Daniel Carlson, he's another if you have to guy. I wouldn't necessarily bench Carlson this week at the New Orleans Saints. He's kicking indoors in controlled weather. Aiden O'Connell is not a disaster at quarterback for the for the Las Vegas Raiders. And we just saw the New Orleans Saints get completely embarrassed on Monday Night Football. So I think they're going to bring a little bit more to the game this weekend. So potentially some red zone stops for them. We're not going to see all Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers dancing in the end zone. I think we're going to have a couple of field goal opportunities. And Daniel Carlson isn't really great. He isn't consistent, but indoors, controlled weather, I think is a great spot for him in this week. So as limited as the Raiders are on offense, it's not a complete train wreck. If you have to start Daniel Carlson, you can. Just don't be expecting the world from him here this week. Okay, Eddie Pineiro of the Carolina Panthers. He's been pretty consistent for us this year. Not a very high ceiling, but a decent floor. I think I'm going to bench Eddie Pineiro this week. It's just a tough matchup. Carolina gets a huge win last week. They're taking on Tampa Bay in Tampa. Tampa is fighting for their lives now after that loss into Dallas. I think we could be in for a Panthers egg after they get the win and a Tampa Bay just beat down after losing that game to the Cowboys. I think it's just a really bad spot now. It is decent weather in Tampa Bay. I don't feel like risking it. We've seen Carolina have some absolute duds on offense this year, especially just 2 weeks ago against said Cowboys. We see a Buccaneers team that's impossible to run the football on. Shouldn't say impossible, but it's pretty damn hard to run the football against them, and that's kind of where Carolina thrives offensively. So I'm going to go ahead and bench Eddie Pineiro this week. All right, Riley Patterson of the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know what I'm going to get out of Atlanta. Michael Penix looked okay in his first start. We saw a very good performance from Bijan Robinson, but Patterson missed a chip shot field goal last week. He was good after that. I think if I'm going to bench Riley Patterson. They're at Washington Sunday night primetime. This just reeks of a big missed kick all over it. Plus, Penix could get overwhelmed his first road career start. And Washington's defense did a really good job against Philadelphia in the second half. I think they're going to lean on Bijan Robinson a lot. And we saw them take away Saquon Barkley last week after that huge first quarter. So I think it could be in a little bit of a sticky situation for Riley Patterson. I don't want to have to risk my championship season on a guy who just got picked up 2 weeks ago. So go ahead and bench Riley Patterson. Find somebody else out there. There's got to be somebody. Okay, Tyler Bass of the Buffalo Bills. A little bit of a letdown last week from Buffalo. They really kind of scraped by New England, but they're at home again this week for the Jets. And you know what? I think I'm going to roll with Tyler Bass. Loving this matchup. It is at home. It is in Buffalo. We know the weather conditions aren't ideal, but I think Buffalo is just going to run this bad boy up. It was maybe too good to be true last week, and Josh Allen in the offense kind of let us down. I think they're going to be rolling this week. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a 40-burger against this Jets team. Their defense is not very good under Ross Ulbrich as the interim head coach. Go ahead, smash play Tyler Bass. There is a bit of risk to it just because the Bills might just score 5 touchdowns, but I think we're going to get a couple of field goal opportunities for Tyler Bass, and he's been pretty good this year all things considered. Maybe misses some of those short kicks, but he knocks home those 50-plus yarders, and those bonus points are also critical in a matchup this week. All right, my guy, Dicker, the kicker, making fair catch free kicks. Oh my goodness, what a legend. And you know what? I'm just a little bit concerned about this Chargers offense. They're going on the road to New England. It's going to be bad, cold weather. I think Dicker is a fine start. You might be limited as your ceiling. We just don't necessarily know what a guy who's kicked in LA, played in Austin in college, what his cold weather kicking skills are going to be, what the weather is going to look like in New England. But Dicker is as consistent as a kicker as any of them come the last few weeks. He's been kind of like Jason Sanders. I think this is a little bit better of a matchup because I do trust the Chargers offense to move the football a little bit better against a bad Patriots team. They are okay with the cold weather. Got to get the running game going a little bit. I think you can roll Dicker out there. Maybe don't expect a super high ceiling, but a pretty safe and consistent floor. And maybe Dicker comes and balls out for you, gives you a big number in this championship game. Little bit of a risk here where he's playing, but you know what? Dicker, the kicker, has been the man this year. So if you want to take the risk, I'm all for it. But for right now, fine to start for me. Okay, Jake Moody of the San Francisco 49ers. I'm putting him in the if you have to category, playing on Monday night at home against the Detroit Lions. As beat up and as bad as the Lions defense has been, there's just way too many issues on this 49ers team. I don't know what to expect from them on a week in, week out basis. They were okay against the Dolphins. I just don't know if I can trust Jake Moody to go ahead and put up a big number for us. I think it's safest to say stay away from Moody. If you have to play Moody, he's like one of the few guys out there. There's some deep-ass leagues, and guys are carrying 3 or 4 kickers for some reason at this point in the year. You can go ahead and start him if you have to, but I'm not going to rely on Moody. Now, maybe the Niners wake up this week. The Lions check out. The game means nothing, and they're kind of resting guys for week 18. So maybe they have a nice day, but I think it's a little bit too risky for my taste. If you have to play Moody, you can, but I personally would not be looking forward to that matchup on Monday night. Okay, how about Cade York of the Cincinnati Bengals? I think Cade York's a fine start this week. I've been kind of waffling on him. He's been bad. He was cut by multiple teams this year. Kind of a little bit of a shaky start back in Cincinnati, but he's been pretty consistent the last few weeks. And the Cincinnati Bengals score points. It's a great matchup against the Denver Broncos defense, who's been very good. They're near the tops in the league in scoring defense. So maybe some real good field goal opportunities. But the Bengals offense has been so good. They put the ball into the end zone. I think Cade York has a little bit of a wide range this week, potentially a low bust, but I think he has a good shot at having a boom week. So if you want to start Cade York, take a little bit of a risk. I think it's a good matchup at home in Cincinnati. There's going to be points scored. It's an excellent game script, and I'm starting to trust Cade York. I can't believe we've gotten here, but Cade York, a fine start this week. All right, and I'm believing in my guy Cade York this week. I'm going to head right on over to Underdog. Check it out. Cade York over 2.5 extra points made. Loving that higher. He's hit that in 3 straight matchups with the Bengals. I mean, he's been making his extra points. The Bengals score touchdowns. I know the Broncos defense is good, but they've hemorrhaged a little bit against high-flying offense, and this is a must-win game for the Cincinnati Bengals and a really big win game for the Denver Broncos. It's going to be a competitive game script. Give me Cade York. I'm going to rely on him. I think he's going to knock home at least 3 extra points for us. And when you head on over to Underdog, sign up using code THECATCH. You'll get our free pick'em of the week. We got our free pick'em for the Christmas games. We got our free pick'em for after that. So don't worry when you're watching this video. If you sign up using code THECATCH, you'll have your free pick'em. And plus, when you sign up using code THECATCH, you'll get up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Yes, that's up to $1,000 cash in deposit match, 50% deposit match when you sign up using code THECATCH. Check out the links down below. All right, Brandon McManus of the Green Bay Packers going to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. And just like Will Reichard, I kind of love this matchup. As good as the Vikings defense has been, there has also been a little bit of juju with kickers in Minnesota. I think defense goes out the window. We saw a strong performance in the second half from Green Bay in their first matchup in Lambeau. Jordan Love and this offense has been rocking and rolling, but they lean on the run game, and Minnesota is one of the best run defenses in football, especially in the red zone. So we could be looking at some red zone stops here, and we're going to have a lot of field goal opportunities. I think this is a high-scoring game. I think there's a lot of field goal opportunities for us. So go ahead. I love this matchup for Brandon McManus. I think he has a huge day for Green Bay, and a lot of points scored, lots of field goals. If you want to go ahead and rock and roll with him, he's been awesome this season. I can't believe Green Bay actually found a kicker. They've had no stability, it felt like, for a long time, and he's really settled into that role. So Brandon McManus, potentially a championship difference this week. Love this matchup. Okay, Zane Gonzales of the Washington Commanders. I think he's a fine start this week. Washington taking on Atlanta. Atlanta's defense kind of been all over the place against better offenses. They have struggled a little bit, and Washington really feels like they found a groove the last few weeks, and they were excellent in that second half against Philadelphia, and Atlanta's defense is nowhere near as good as Philadelphia. Washington needs this win. Potentially, they could already lock up that wild card spot prior to this game, but why not just win this game and take care of business? Now they're in Washington, outdoors, inclement weather. It's been pretty cold all along the East Coast the past week or so, but I think this offense is just too good. They get into field goal range all the time, and Dan Quinn's not hyper aggressive. He's not going for it a lot on fourth downs. They are taking their points when they need to take their points, especially early to the mid part of the games, unless they're chasing a lead big time, which I don't think the Commanders are going to be doing against Atlanta. I like Zane Gonzales this week. Maybe not a super high ceiling just because potential for a missed kick here or there. Other than that, I think he's going to be solid for you guys, filling in for Austin Seibert very nicely this year. Cairo Santos of the Chicago Bears taking on the Seahawks on Thursday. Yeah, bench him. Just don't play Cairo Santos. We got a lot of football this week. Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday, Monday, maybe Saturday. Oh, we do have Saturday games. Go ahead and bench Cairo Santos this week. Chicago is just a dumpster fire. I mean, that's all I got to say. They're awful. Don't trust them. They're not going to get into scoring range. And if they do, I'm sure he'll miss the kick. It's in Chicago. It's cold weather. It's bad weather. Windy as can be. Don't risk it with Cairo Santos. We've seen him have the block kick issue. Don't do this to yourself. Bears fans already deal with enough. Don't put yourself in their shoes if you don't have to. Go ahead and bench him. Okay, Matt Gay of the Indianapolis Colts. Been a little bit of a roller coaster this season for him, but they're going to the absolute worst place to kick field goals, as I talked about earlier, and I talked about last week, and I've talked about pretty much all season, heading to MetLife to take on the Giants. I know the Giants are terrible, but I just can't risk it. If you have to play Matt Gay, you can go ahead, because I think the Colts could score a lot of points, but it's not at all any sort of ideal situation to go ahead and kick these field goals. So if you have to play Matt Gay, go ahead, I guess. I'm just be warned, I don't like kicking at MetLife / the Meadowlands at all. It's just a really tough place to make those field goals, and even the extra points seem difficult. So if you have to play Matt Gay, I guess you can, but be warned. All right, my man Chase McLaughlin, he's been really reliable this season, taking on the Carolina Panthers. I think this is a revenge spot or like a get-back spot for the Buccaneers after that letdown on Sunday night. Give me Chase McLaughlin. Love this matchup. He's been great all year for us. Don't worry about it. You know what? He's basically a start him every week guy, and if you got Chase McLaughlin, sorry I had to make you wait this long to get here. Go ahead and put Chase McLaughlin in your lineup. Love this matchup. He should be excellent for you guys against Carolina this week. All right, Chad Ryland of the Arizona Cardinals. I think he's a fine start this week. Arizona's been all over the place offensively. They struggle to produce in the red zone. They're a really bad red zone team, but they're in great situation at the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams defense isn't great. They are able to rush the passer, but the back end isn't really that good. It's going to be excellent kicking conditions for him. And Chad Ryland, a guy who couldn't make a single kick, it felt like, for the Patriots last year, has been really, really solid for the Cardinals this year. So if you want to roll out Chad Ryland, you know, if you have enough belief in James Conner and Kyler Murray, I really don't, but I think he's going to be a fine start for you this week. Probably a couple field goals, maybe only 1 or 2 extra points, but a decently safe floor for you guys with Chad Ryland. Okay, Jake Elliott at home against the Dallas Cowboys. I think he's a fine start. Dallas' defense has been playing a lot better. The Eagles probably not going to have Jalen Hurts at quarterback. Not necessarily a meaningful game for the Eagles. And they're in Philadelphia. Crazy Nick Sirianni. Who knows what he's going to do? Is he going to let his kicker kick field goals, or is he just going to go for every 4th down? And Elliott's been really inconsistent this year. Has yet to make a kick of 50-plus yards. Actually, I think he has 1 made kick of 50-plus yards this year that he made on Sunday. So he's really struggled from distance. Not a lot of upside to Elliott. He was a guy who's really kind of fallen off here. It's a real shame because I like Jake Elliott, but goofy situation with a head coach. Who knows what the quarterback situation is going to look like? If it's Kenny Pickett, most likely. They're probably going to be a low-scoring game here in Philadelphia. So fine start to Jake Elliott. Don't necessarily love his upside this week. Okay, Will Lutz. I actually love this matchup for Will Lutz this week. He's been a really consistent kicker. Denver coming off 10 days extra rest, and they're going to Cincinnati. Not an ideal place to kick the football, but the Bengals defense is awful. Now, they've been better the last few weeks, but we know what this defense can be. This offense isn't a train wreck. They do struggle to run the football, but they love the short passing game. They can move the chains, pick up yardages, and I think we're just going to have a lot of opportunities this week. I think defense kind of goes out the window, and it's a lot of points. Both teams need this game for the playoffs. It's an elimination game for Cincinnati, and it's not quite an elimination game for Denver, but then they're really up against it if they catch an L this weekend. So I love the opportunities and the game script for Will Lutz, and he's been as consistent as any kicker for us this year. So go ahead, love this matchup for Will Lutz. And finally, Seahawks kicker Jason Myers. I'm going to put him in the if you have to category. Just not a great matchup. We saw a little bit more from the Seahawks offense against the Vikings last week. Did miss a 60-yard field goal. Not going to really put that on him. But in Chicago, awful kicking conditions. Chicago's defense isn't good, but they do get stopped sometimes, even though they've looked kind of bad the last few weeks. I just think Seattle's going to be in go-for-it mode. They're going to have to score touchdowns. They're going to be trying to win this game at all costs as their playoff lives dwindle away. Don't know necessarily what the motivation is going to be for Chicago, so I think there's probably an okay floor for Jason Myers. Really not much of a ceiling, I don't think. I don't think we're going to see like 3 or 4 field goals from him, but the Seahawks, desperate, could give them a lot of touchdowns, a lot of opportunities for some extra points, maybe not so many for field goals. So if you have to start Jason Myers, I think you can this week. But that's going to do it for us this week. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll be answering all of your kicker questions throughout the week. Make sure you guys get the right guy into your lineup to bring home that fantasy championship, or even that toilet bowl, or maybe that third place game. You want to get your buy-in back? Go ahead and get that dub. I'll be here answering your questions throughout the week. If you haven't already, drop a quick like on this video, hit that subscribe button. We got all the daily fantasy football content you guys could ever want. Your must-starts for quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, every single matchup. Our must-start defenses, your sneaky starts for the week, guys to target on the waiver wire still, plus live streams throughout the week answering your questions. We got it all for you guys. Be sure to check out the links down below. Again, like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see y'all tomorrow.